There is a tower in the Iranian desert that has kept its rooms cool for 600 years. No air conditioner, no fan, not a single watt of electricity. On an afternoon when the air outside climbs past 113 degrees Fahrenheit, the space underneath it stays calm and breathable, and the only machine doing the work is the shape of the building itself. Tested modern versions of this same idea can pull the temperature inside an ordinary home down by as much as 15 degrees, for free, with no moving parts to wear out. So here is the strange part. We understood how to do this 3,000 years ago. Then somewhere along the line, we forgot and started paying a utility company to do the same job, worse, every single month. If you are the kind of person who would rather know how a thing actually works than just flip a switch and hope, stay with me and think about subscribing, because digging out exactly this sort of forgotten engineering is the whole reason this channel exists. What you are looking at is called a solar chimney, sometimes a thermal chimney, and the name is almost misleading because the one thing it is not built to do is carry smoke. It is a tall, virtual shaft, usually painted black on the sunward side, designed to do nothing but soak up heat. As the sun bakes that dark column, the air trapped inside it warms, gets lighter, and begins to climb. The taller the shaft, the more forcefully that warm air rushes out the top. And here is the move that makes the whole thing work. As that hot air escapes upward, it cannot leave a vacuum behind it, so it drags fresh air in through the rooms below to replace itself. The chimney is not getting rid of smoke. It is quietly pumping a continuous river of air through your house, and the sun is the only thing paying for the pump. The physics underneath it has two parts, and neither one is exotic. The first is the stack effect, the simple fact that warm air is less dense than cool air and will always try to rise above it. Give that rising air a tall, sun-heated chimney to escape through, and you turn a gentle tendency into a steady draw. The second is the Bernoulli principle. When wind passes across the open top of the shaft, the air there speeds up and its pressure drops, which adds a second pull on top of the first, sucking the inside air out even harder. Together they produce something genuinely useful, a constant negative pressure at the highest point of the building that flushes hot, stale air out and pulls cooler air in, hour after hour, with nothing to plug in. And it gets better when you pair it with the ground. Run the incoming air through a buried pipe before it reaches the rooms, an earth tube, and the soil, which sits near 55 degrees a few feet down, strips the heat out of that air before it ever enters the house. Now you have built air conditioning with no compressor, no refrigerant, and no power bill. I will admit, the first time I followed the airflow through on paper, I had to sit back for a second, because there is no trick hidden in it anywhere, just heat and height, and the way air behaves when you give it somewhere to go. The cleverness is that there is nothing clever left to break. None of this is new, which is the part that should bother us. More than 1,000 years ago, Persian architects were lining their desert cities with tall, hollow towers called wind catchers, built to scoop the breeze and funnel it down through the living spaces while the heat escaped upward and out. These were not novelties. They were the reason whole cities stayed livable through summers that pushed past 113 degrees, long before anyone had a word for thermodynamics. The engineering was passed down, refined, and trusted for centuries across the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Asia. People built their homes around the movement of air, the way we now build ours around a thermostat. That wind catcher idea kept entire desert cities alive for 1,000 years on nothing but sun and shape. And if stories like that are why you are still here, this is the channel that goes looking for them, so you do not have to. A quick subscribe is the only thing that tells the algorithm to keep putting them in front of you. Now, back to the question that matters. Because the solar chimney is not just a summer trick. Add one small bypass damper, a simple adjustable flap inside the shaft, and you can run the whole thing in reverse logic during winter. Instead of venting the hot air out, you trap the sun-warmed air in that black column and let it bleed back into the house as free heat. One structure, two opposite seasons, No second system to buy. A device that cools you in July and warms you in January and asks for nothing in between. So if it is this old, this proven, and this cheap, why is it not on every roof in the country? The honest answer comes down to two things, and neither one is about whether it works. The first is money, but not the way the conspiracy crowd means it. The modern housing industry is built around mechanical heating and cooling precisely because mechanical systems can be sold, financed, serviced, and replaced. An HVAC unit that needs swapping every 15 years is a business. A black shaft with no parts that simply works for the life of the building is not. There is nothing to install on a schedule and nothing to sell you twice. The second reason is regulation. As new homes became tighter and more sealed for efficiency, building codes began demanding mechanical ventilation that guarantees a precise, measurable rate of air exchange. A solar chimney cannot promise that because its output rises and falls with the sun and the wind, the two things no engineer can certify. So a system that asks for nothing and runs forever quietly slipped into a regulatory grey zone, edged out not because it failed a test, but because it could not be measured the way the rulebook now insists. Picture what this actually looks like if you build one. On an existing house, the simplest version is a wall-mounted retrofit, a sealed dark panel running up an exterior wall that you can put together for somewhere between $300 and $500. On a new build, it becomes a dedicated thermal shaft designed into the structure itself, paired with an earth tube buried in the yard. And here is the scene worth holding on to. Imagine a summer when the grid goes down across an entire neighborhood. Every air conditioner on the street falls silent at once. The houses around you start to heat up by the hour, and inside one home, air keeps moving, cool and steady, pulled through buried pipe and pushed out a sun-warmed tower, because that house was never plugged into anything to begin with. That 600-year-old tower is still standing in the desert, still cool inside, still doing its job without a single repair, while we draw up blueprints for homes that cannot survive one hot afternoon without the power company. So here is the question I will leave you with. Did we walk away from a genuinely better way of building for no good reason at all? Or is passive cooling just a beautiful relic that can never really keep a modern sealed house comfortable? Pick a side and tell me which one, because I go back and forth on it myself. And if the spinning rooftop cousin of this same idea interests you, the little silver whirlybird that vanished from American roofs for almost the same reasons, it is the one I would watch next. Come find it with me.